Welcome to A Night for Truth, a series of conversations with Dr. Alice von Hildebrand, the wife of the great 20th century philosopher and theologian and thinker Dietrich von Hildebrand. We've been speaking of both his life and his work, and in the last few conversations we've been speaking particularly of his work on love and sexuality and the mystery of holy matrimony. And I think before we leave this, let me remind you, he is still a young man here. We are at about 18 or 20, early 20s.
Yes.
Yes, he was born in 1889, I think. Is that correct? Yes, so he is still a relatively young man and had quite a career, quite an exciting career ahead of him. As you can well imagine, he had to make some very, very difficult decisions about how he was going to respond to the phenomenon of National Socialism in Germany. But as we come up to that, Billy, are there some concluding thoughts and comments on his book, Love and Marriage, that we need to underscore before we move along?
Well, I do believe, his absolute conviction that love is not blind, but that when you
see something real.
That when you fall in love, you truly see an objective beauty which you are privileged to see, because not everybody might see it. If
I can just squeak in a little footnote here, he is reiterating here something which, of course, Dante was on to as well. Most people would think that, the vision of the lover has been beclouded by magic dust thrown into the air by some fairy, he's just seeing things because he's in love. And Dante and your husband would say, no, it is exactly the other way around. The lover's eyes have been opened, and he sees the truth of the being of that other person. And mercifully, the rest of us, our eyes are veiled. We would not be able to walk among hundreds and thousands of people every day and see the full truth of them. We'd be staggering around in a drunken ecstasy, falling in love with every being.
What you say is very beautifully formulated, but it doesn't exclude the possibility that some people fall in love because they want to.
Which
and
would be a travesty.
And then project into someone who is a nobody or something of the sort. You see, the other case is simply a gift that all of a sudden you perceive the beauty of another person. That is to say, in some way, what God wants this person to become.
Yes.
It's a sort of vision, a very special word that God has spoken to this one unique individual. Because, you see, one thing is to love all men. And then you can say love of neighbor. It's totally indifferent to me whether you are so or so or so. You are God's child, and therefore with His grace I will love you. But it is not a response to his own individuality, because otherwise it is quite clear that some people would be excluded. If you have rapists and you have criminals and you have a Hitler, you have a Stalin and these people, and lots of other people. Simply say, well, I cannot love them, they're not lovable. But supernaturally speaking, you piece through all this crust of dirt, and you see the tragedy of someone made to God's image and likeness, who has totally stained this beautiful image. But nevertheless, it is still there as long as he lives, and it must be redeemed.
In a sense, the eyesight, you might say, of the lover has been privileged to, as it were, share God's view of this person.
It's a perfect formulation, Tom. I cannot improve upon it. It's a sort of Tabor vision.
Yes.
This is what this particular person is in the deepest sense of this term.
Yes.
And then this is something that my husband developed so beautifully in his various works. I see the beauty of another person, his nobility, quite against the background of being God's child, but it can be beauty, it can be intelligence, it can be charm, it can be goodness, it can be compassion, it can be mercifulness, and you go on and on. Then what is going to happen, it's going to touch your heart. Your heart will be affected by this beauty. You see, how beautiful are thou. And then obviously comes my response. In other words, first I must perceive. Number 2, I must be touched and affected. Number 3, I give the response. And the response is, thou deserves love. One moment that I discovered that another person deserves love, the very thought of using him as a means for my own satisfaction or fulfillment becomes hateful to me. Because that would be a sort of desacralization. I mean, there's an abyss between my being interested in another person because I need him.
And
because it's going to help me in my work.
It's a mystery which partakes of, again, of the mystery of the divine love, because, of course, the divine love wants its object to, passionately and tremendously. God sent his Son to die, to win us back. And yet the last thing that the divine love would do would be to crush us or to merely use us. And by the same token, with the lover, with the true spouse, of course, he wants his spouse to be his, to be totally his, and yet he will be the first one to say, but I will treat this with absolute dignity and respect according to the sanctity of her being.
The first response, and this is something which is so beautifully described in literature, because literature has done a lot better than philosophy when it comes to analyzing love. There you truly see the phenomenon illumined again and again in the most sublime way.
Well, you're talking to an English teacher, so I'm happy to agree with you.
But first of all, because you perceive this person to be so noble and beautiful and so on and so on, there's a feeling of awe that you had it there approaching,
yes.
That you feel so unworthy. So many times I've heard husbands say, about their lovable wife, when I fell in love, I just felt, never will she accept me. I'm unworthy of her. In other words, there's a sort of distance created by awe, by reverence. And then, but your heart is deeply affected, and in your heart, you give a response, I love you because you deserve it. Not because I need you. Not because I'm going to be self-fulfilled. Not because you're going to take care of my household. Not because you're going to be my cook. Not because and so on and so on. But because you are lovable. And your heart is touched by it. And the very moment, of course, you discover that you fall in love, when all of a sudden you develop an ardent desire to shower gifts on the loved one. It can be a flower. It can be a book. It can be, you eagerly look for things that the person likes and then go out of your way. One of my very close friends who was a beggar, he was a refugee in Europe, from Finland, coming to Salzburg, and he was living in such incredible poverty. And he fell in love with a lovely, lovely young girl, pure and sweet and so on and so on. And he had nothing. And then he'll climb at 4 in the morning, he will climb a mountain to try to find an edelweiss.
Edelweiss.
These flowers which are so difficult to find, and then bring this to her. That's all that he had. But this one little flower meant so much because it simply meant, I wish I could give you the world. But I'm a beggar. At least accept my edelweiss.
Yes.
Which simply shows you would like to be, one says in Italian, and it's a very beautiful way of expression, ti voglio bene. My attitude is one of kindness towards you, because you deserve it. And of course, the gamut of the things that you would like to give to the other person is practically, it can be a glass of water, it can be a delicious meal, it can be, but it goes all the way up. That if you truly understand the greatness of love, you see, I want you to be saved. I want you to be in eternity. I want you to reach God. This is the greatest wish that a Christian lover can give. I'll develop that later on, but now I'm still speaking just about natural love. That all of a sudden you say, I wish I were a king and then I will give you jewels, and I will give you properties, and I will give you a mansion, and I will give you the most beautiful clothing. You know, so to speak, your heart is open, whereas when you don't like someone, you close your heart, and someone says to him, why don't you give him so and so? Of course not, he doesn't deserve it, I'm not going to give it.
And it's at this very point of joy on the part of the lover, even if he's a beggar, an exile, a refugee from Finland. It's at this point of sheer joy in giving, even if it's only an edelweiss. But the beloved would be the last one to say it's only an edelweiss. I mean, this is the world. This is his love. It's at this point of joy that it seems to me the mystery of giving and receiving come together as they do in the divine love, so that for him to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and climb the rocks and find an edelweiss, that's not drudgery. That's not, he doesn't do it reluctantly and grumpily. I've got to go up and find this flower. But he's eager. Every step, every straining over the rocks is sheer joy.
But now there are two things that I would like to say, and my husband keeps repeating this. It's like a main theme in a symphony. It's only when you love that you are awakened. Most of us go through life in a state of drowsiness or sleepiness. We do this and we do that and so on and so on, and it goes on and on. And the moment that you fall in love, you start living. The people who never loved or never loved anybody are dead. They're sort of mummies. And this is said so beautifully in the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven. The last movement, which is using this poem of Schiller. Happy is he who can call one person his own. And those who have never experienced this, let them leave sorrowing or crying. You're just lost, you don't live. But simultaneously, if I fall in love with another person, what is the greatest gift? I'm speaking of natural love, not yet of supernatural love. What is the greatest gift that I can give? My heart. And Tom, we have to have at least 2 or 3 programs on the role of the heart and affectivity in my husband's thought. Suppose that I give you every possible gift, but I don't give you my heart. I don't love. You find people like that. They're very generous. They rejoice about giving. I know people whose joy in life is to give this one and this one and this one, but they don't give their heart. They keep it to themselves.
It might interest the viewers to know that your husband wrote a book called The Heart.
Yes, and we're going to discuss
in which he touches on the heart of our Lord.
Unfortunately, he has been out of print for about 30 years, and up to now, nobody has shown any interest in reprinting it, which saddens me so much, because it is one of his gems. This is why I feel particularly important to discuss it on this program, because it's not available. It is very, very sad, but no one seems to have understood. This is something that we desperately need today. So it is by giving you my heart that I give you the greatest gift of my love. I give you a gem, I give you books, I give you a mansion, that's nothing. But if you have a person's heart, and all that it can give you is an edelweiss, you are very rich indeed.
And somehow, in a mystery, this, which is so universal and so profound, and all poetry and all music, recognizes it as at the center of the human mystery, it itself touches and gives us a glimpse into the mystery of the Holy Trinity, which is, of course, the fountainhead of all reality.
We're going to get there.
Yes.
Because, basically what happens is that when you love, in the deep sense of the term, you're going to discover how miserably poor you are. And, this is why if human love doesn't find its fulfillment in the supernatural, I'll develop this in a moment. But now comes the third step. I see your beauty, your kindness, your nobility, your lovableness. My heart is touched. And then I would like to shower you with every possible gift. you know, you already see that in a little child. I mean, I recall my little sister who loved my mother very much, and, you know, and then she picked up a pebble, you know, as a gift. He was about 3 years old, and, you know, brought it to my mother and said, "No, Lord, I'm giving you something. I'm giving you this." You know, well, a pebble is only a pebble. But, I mean, of course, it was so lovable that the child said, "I don't want to come empty-handed. I want to give you a pebble." And, you know, God accepts our pebbles. Because, I mean, basically, what can I give him? The best of cases, a few pebbles. But
I often think of the little child bringing the limp little fistful of dandelions from the lawn as a bouquet for his mother.
Of course.
Well, she would rather have that than the most expensive arrangement from 57th Street.
And given by a husband whose heart is somewhere else.
Yes.
And that happens. And then comes the third moment, so to speak, the desire for union. And this is something that has been very much misinterpreted. If I'm not mistaken, the French philosopher Fénelon felt somehow that in order for love to be truly pure, you should not crave for union, because he saw union basically as, you know, grasping for something that I want to possess. In other words, that instead of being, he did not understand that this desire for union is a necessary expression of love. If I say, you're Tom, you're a dear friend of mine, but I don't need to see you to the rest of my life. You know, I know very well every time I have a chance of seeing you, and I will try to do it. But I simply say, oh, no, you know, there's love between us, there's friendship, that's it. We don't need more. Necessarily, essentially, you must desire to be united with the beloved, and you feel unworthy of it. You suddenly simply say, well, I have a right to it, or, you know, you deserve it. And you feel unworthy, and this is expressed so magnificently in The Tempest. When Miranda falls in love with Ferdinand. Well, can you quote it?
A Brave New World. Well, yes, when she sees...
she says, I mean, I don't dare give what I'm burning to give, you know, which is meaning to say myself. And if I cannot be your wife, at least let me be your maid. You know, the desire to serve, and therefore you see the nobility of this craving to be united to him, to the beloved one. I don't deserve it. He's so much better than I am, but somehow I'm giving myself to him completely and totally. Therefore, as we said already, speaking about purity, it's not a taking, it is a giving.
And it's interesting in this connection, of course, that the Church blesses this as a sacrament, this union.
But you know, this is something which you find in the Catholics and the Orthodox Church.
Yes.
You know, to elevate, you know, something which is non-speaking about marriage, something which many people are going to consider to be fleshly. It is a flesh, and so on and so on. But through incarnation, all this has been elevated to such a degree of sublimity that, I mean, as I said, it is amazing that marriage is a sacrament blessed by the Church, a means of grace. The embrace between husband and wife is a means of grace, elevating both of them. And virginity, which is this total donation to God, is not a sacrament. It's one of the paradoxes of the Catholic Church, but very profound.
Worth pondering. Yeah. It's not a sacrament.
It's not a sacrament.
And the imagery in the Orthodox wedding ceremony, the crowning of the bride and the groom, testifies to this sense in which, you know, they have reached a point in self-donation and commitment and fidelity where they emerge as in their true majesty, with which they have in fact been crowned by God, and man as spouse and woman as spouse. They are icons of one of the two icons, the other being the Virgin, of humanity in its authentic stature.
And I mean, just imagine how beautiful it is if a young girl who has lived a pure life is conscious of the mystery of her virginity and can say to the bridegroom, John, I'm going to give you the keys to this mysterious garden that I have kept unspotted for you. And now with God's permission, in conspectu Dei, in front of God, I'm giving this. This is the greatest gift. I mean, suppose that she brought in millions of dollars. What good does it do? It's dust and ashes. And this is what you understand when you fall in love. There are things that are so beautiful and so valuable in themselves that they deserve a response of love and reverence and gratitude.
Yes.
You see, because in our society, well, what does it bring in marriage? I mean, does she have money or does she earn money? And I mean, it's already said the whole beauty is already stained by this is of mercantile way of looking at the problem. No, but
this is the point.
You see, my husband got married 2 years before he converted. And there was absolutely no doubt about the fact that he was deeply in love. And that he meant it to be a bond for life. He was very serious about that. But when he converted, he suddenly realized, and this is something that he has so beautifully described in his various books, the limits and ultimately the tragedy of a purely human love. Why? Why? I mean, in other words, he claims once again that at the moment of his conversion, a new universe opened up for him, which is going to change radically his very noble view of marriage prior to his conversion, because for him it was always something noble and something great and so on and so on, that he considered to be the greatest source of human happiness.
But great as it was grace, which, lo and behold, or the supernatural, which, not only did not cramp it or confine it, but illumined it and liberated it and brought it to its true splendor.
Absolutely. But more than that, he saw a purely human love, and this is something which is illustrated in literature, as carrying within itself the notes of tragedy. Now let me just explain to you or share with you what he says about this. I love another human being with every fiber of my being. I see this person's beauty and this person's greatness and nobility, and my heart is wounded by love. As it is said in the Canticle of Canticle, well, feed me with apples because I'm fainting from love. You truly feel all this. And suddenly you realize you would like this love to reach it into eternity. And you're time bound. You would like this love to reach infinity. And you're dreadfully finite. I would like to shower my beloved with every possible gift. And suddenly, you know what happens? Love makes you realize that you're a beggar. I would like to give so much, and what do I have to give? Well, I try here and there, well, there might be edelweiss and so on and so on, but nevertheless, the discrepancy between what I would like to give and what I can give is such that obviously I say to myself, I just can't do it. I love my beloved. And suddenly I realize he can be threatened by sickness. He can be threatened by death. Maybe, he says to me, he kisses me early in the morning to go to work, and maybe he's not going to come alive at night. And I can't protect him. This is a tragedy. I can't. I would like to say, well, live forever. I want you to live. I don't want you to die. Gabriel Marcel says so beautifully in one of his plays, to love another person is to say, thou shalt not die. And yet I cannot prevent it. I cannot guarantee for one single moment that you're not going to be massacred, killed, and whatever it might be.
So that in one sense, the greatest and the richest and the most precious thing in our life is the most fragile.
That's it, you see. And you experience, but also what I would like to insist upon is the discrepancy between what you would like to give and what you have. And suddenly you realize your poverty and your misery. This is why my husband says, if you read great literature, and some very, very beautiful love stories have been defeated because we are not Calvinists. human nature is wounded, but it is not corrupted.
It is not,
and there's still a possibility of create authentic, genuine love.
Indeed.
But suppose that you are very conscious of man's metaphysical situation, of
and
his
I'm going to
imperfection, of his
carry you
weakness.
with the clock.
Just
again.
one more word, then it
One.
ends with the tragedy of Tristan and Isolde.
Yeah. Yes, Liebestod. There we are. Love and death right together. Well, at which profound point, I don't think we can call it an upbeat point, but at which profound point we must draw this section of our ongoing conversation to a close. But I think as you speak, the viewers inevitably will be increasingly aware of the tremendous vistas onto which your husband's work opens. So thank you so much, Dr. von Hildebrand, and join us again as we continue our conversation on A Night for Truth on the work of Dietrich von Hildebrand. Thank you.